Thank you everybody for coming. My name is Rachel Honoway and I am the CEO at FMTC. Some of you who have been in the industry for a little bit longer may remember us as For Me to Coupon. We are an affiliate data feed provider. Our company is virtual. We are completely virtual. We have all of our employees are across the United States, and we are really across the United States. We have an address in Austin, Texas, and we've all been walking around. There are 6 of us here today. We've been walking around with our badges that say Austin, Texas on it. Somebody in the elevator just gave me this, and I'm like, is that a rock on? What's that? And he's like, no, Austin, hook 'em horns. I'm like, oh. I'm actually from Detroit. My badge just happens to say Austin, Texas. I'm sorry, I don't know that. And that's kind of how we all are. There are 4 people sitting right back there that are on my team, and we're all across the country. We've got Buffalo and California and North Carolina, and there's a Canadian too. So, but there's our international focus. So we really are, we're all over the place, and I'm here to kind of give you some tips and talk a little bit about the experience that we've gone through over the last couple of years and really nailing down a strategy that works for managing a virtual team. Before I really get into it, I want to say that I don't have this down pat, and I think that a lot of us are working on this and maybe even struggling with it at some points. So I'm by no means saying this is the way you have to do it and this is the most successful way to do it, but these are some of the things that we've learned, and some of them by falling straight on our faces. Hopefully that will help you not do that. All right, so let me get the button right. So got kind of a quick little time frame here to get through some of these points. So I'm going to narrow it down to these 5 points. You'll see that the first one is have a plan, and I made it big and bold and huge. It seems like one of those things that's really, duh, we should definitely have a plan, but a lot of people skip over it in any sort of business situation. And if you're going to be managing a group of people who you're not seeing every day and you can't physically reach out and touch, plan is something that's incredibly, incredibly important. Hire carefully. I know you hear that in a lot of other things. I've got some tips on some of the hiring strategies that have worked for us. Designate systems. We've got a bunch of people working out of their homes all over the place. It's really, really important that you have a set of systems that everyone is using and knows how to use, and they're collaborating together on them. Policies. That's such like a boring word. Nobody wants policies. Nobody wants rules. But once you have them, it makes a world of difference. And then the last point is communicate constantly. My staff will tell you, if you sit me down, I will not stop talking. I will talk and talk and talk forever. So that's something that I'll have problems with, because I'm sitting at home by myself and my dog's staring at me. Like, I need to talk to somebody. I have to get on the phone. I have to work with my team. And so that is important, and it's a great way to get ideas flowing and keep everybody connected. So we're going to cover that also. All right, so let's start with this have a plan. Like I said, that's one of those things that really looks like, I have to create a plan. I'm so busy. I don't have time to create a plan, right? I don't want to sit down and write a whole business plan. Seriously, if you don't have a plan, managing people anywhere is going to be a giant, giant pain. So having a plan is incredibly, incredibly important in getting started with anything, especially when getting started with a virtual team. So take some time to define your company's purpose. What do you do? And as much as what do you do, what don't you do? What are your employees supposed to say yes to? What are they supposed to tell clients, sorry, no, we don't do that? You have to have those guidelines set, and you have to have that plan ready to go and communicated to your team. Document the plans. I'll talk a little bit about how to do that here at the end, but that's something, I feel like I have a lot of ideas and plans and goals. They're in my head, and it's a process that I go through each week to get those out of my head onto paper and out to my team. That's something that you absolutely have to do. Determine your hiring needs. We do this a lot. Like, we're coming up on Q4. Q4 is a really busy time when you're collecting deals and coupons from all of the affiliate networks. You guys, merchants are putting in tons and tons of offers, and affiliates are grabbing all they can. our team is working really, really hard during that time. We've got a lot of hours coming in then. So we start to get here into August and we're like, oh, do we need more people? We might need more people. What do we do? So we've gotten really, really addicted to data, looking through our data. We're saying, oh, well, we have all of these hourly employees who can work up to 40 hours a week. And, so if we've got all these 40-hour-a-week people, we might need one more of those. Well, we look back at our data. We look to see how many hours are they actually working? How many deals are they processing during that time? What can we do to help them improve that? What can we do to get somebody who's at 20 hours a week to really work that 40 so we don't have to go and hire somebody else, train them, and get them ready? So we've been focusing a lot on the data and doing what the numbers tell us. There's obviously some cost savings in that. We're not hiring people we don't need, but it's great also for our team. We can say, hey, we really need you. We want you to work. You're hourly. We want to pay you more money. Please work more hours. So that's something that's worked out really well for us. Create an org chart. And I'm not saying you have to create some beautiful, huge document or anything like that. It can be back of a napkin, write something down, and include the holes. In about 6 months, we're going to need a director of marketing. That's a position that FMTC will have. We need a director of marketing in the new year. So I know that that's a hole on my org chart that I'm going to need to have filled soon. And also then create a budget and a schedule to fill those. I know what my budget looks like for that, and I know that the time frame to reach that budget and to have the money that it's going to take to hire a person like that is going to be coming in January. And quite honestly, maybe it'll come in December if I'm lucky, and maybe it won't come until February if we have to stretch things out. So creating plans, like I said, it can be something that is difficult and a big undertaking. So I've listed 4 books here. Hopefully you can see them. I'll read off the titles. The first 2, Mastering the Rockefeller Habits and Scaling Up. If you haven't read either of them, go with Scaling Up. It's like the second version of this. And they just really understand growing companies. The whole idea of a business plan, they're like, just forget it. You don't need to spend days and hours and weeks and months and consultant fees and all of that getting business plans written. Take your time, fill out this one chart on one page, and it really is. It's a one-page strategy. You can do it in an afternoon. You can keep revising it over time, but it's a plan, and it's a really nice document to say to your staff, here's who we are, here's what we do. So that they've got great advice in there. Jim Collins, Good to Great. If you guys haven't read this book and you're running companies, you're missing out. Read this book. It's really inspirational. Also, you hear these great stories, and it works. A lot of the companies that they talk about in the book are big companies, but a lot of the lessons can be applied to any size company. But Jim Collins is really big on getting the right people, right butts in the right seats, and that's very important. And that definitely helps with managing in-house team, but for sure a virtual team. And then the last one is how successful people think. And for this one, I tend to think of myself as somebody. I'm a strategy person. I'm thinking. There's constantly stuff running through my head all the time. But at some points, it's what do I do with that? What am I supposed to do with all these random ideas that are coming in? So this book gives you different strategies for really structuring your thinking, talking about strategic thinking and group thinking, and it gives you tips on how to do those things. It might seem really elemental, but when you take the time to do it, you're like, oh, I guess I don't do that, and I probably should. And I guess that's why that idea keeps coming back to me, but I haven't figured out what to do with it yet. So it's a nice way to structure those ideas that are coming to you all the time. But all of that together really is the whole idea. Just goes back to that having a plan. So very important. Let's see here. Okay, number 2. Hire carefully. And again, I know you've all heard this before. The first thing we start with is job descriptions. And this is one of the things we've done probably over the last year. We had job descriptions for anybody new that we were hiring, but then we actually went backwards to people that have had their jobs and maybe they started out as something and then they kind of moved into something else, and now they're also handling this, and, well, don't they do the email on Tuesday? So we have a lot of people that are wearing a lot of different hats, and so we've taken the time to go through each person, and we're still in that process of actually getting their job descriptions down on paper. And it makes it a very a better communication device for our team members. We're able to say, well, this is your job, and they can say to us, well, what about all these other things I do? Or, I didn't know I was supposed to do that. I thought somebody else was responsible for those things. So that's been really, really helpful. Strategy that we've been using, and I'll say successfully, in the fact that it's gotten us some good candidates and it's washed out some that didn't work out so well. Some people call it a paid tryout. And essentially what that means is hiring somebody in as a contractor. Hire them in at an hourly rate as a contractor. And I know this doesn't work for every job and every position that you might have available, but it does work for a lot of them. So give it a try, have somebody come in as a contractor, give them a few jobs to do, start the communication cycle with them, see how things are working for you and for them. If it works out, then you can move them into the position where they are a full-time employee. This has worked out really well for us in a few different positions, and for different reasons, to try people out, and also to have people transition from a job they were at before and they were leaving to come. Amy is sitting back over here. She's on our staff, and she just came on full-time on Saturday, but she's been with us part-time for a month now, because she was working her way out of her previous job and training her replacement there. So that worked out. And we have had failures that we call a success here, in that we had somebody recently that we brought in as a contractor. We worked through a few projects and got to the point where, like, you know what, it's just probably not a great fit, and we were both able to part ways really, really nicely, and it worked out. The next thing to decide, and that plays off of this, is somebody a contractor or are they an employee? When I started at FMTC 2 years ago, I took over, there were, I think I was maybe the third full-time employee. Everybody else was a contractor, and there's all this, like, well, they're contracted here and they're over there, and, well, they only work on this and they do that, and there was a lot of, it was really, really difficult to wrap our hands around arms around what it was that everybody was doing, and where they fit into FMTC. So I've made it a goal to try to get more and more of the people that are working with us into 40-hour employee positions. And that, I think, works out really well for our company, but it also works out with the employees. They're a permanent member of our team. So to go with that, clear offer letters and contracts. This goes back to the job description. What is the person doing? What are you expecting out of them? How much are you paying them? Get that in writing. It's much easier to go back and say, hey, let's revise that and let's talk about it again, than it is to say, well, we don't think you're living up to your expectations. Or, like, we never told me what my expectations were. So again, documenting those things is very important. Training is very important. And we've heard this a few times from people in our own company. They say, well, I started and you told me this was my job, and then I didn't really know what to do. You're like, oh, that kind of stinks, right? You're like, you hired somebody, they were a good fit, you were really excited about it, they were excited about taking the job, and then they're at home by themselves, and they logged in, and they sat there staring at their screen thinking, what do I do next? So training has been something that's really, really a big part of what we're doing. Everybody is, thrown into meetings right away, and they've got somebody that they're talking to and that they can reach out to at any time. And they walk through our systems and our policies, and it's helped out a lot in getting people started in understanding what their job is and starting to contribute right off the bat. Be ready for a failure. I touched on this a little bit earlier. You're going to hire and it's going to be the wrong fit. That it's just going to happen, especially if any of you are here and you're growing your companies. You're going to be hiring, you start to hire outside of your own circles. We're hitting that point right now. A lot of the people that we've hired, we know, or we at least know somebody who knows them, or they've been at Affiliate Summit at some point, we've met them. Now we're getting to the point where we've kind of exhausted that, and we need to get people that we haven't met before, and we're expecting that we're going to have some failures with that. So it's a little nerve-wracking to think that that's going to happen, but expecting it means that we can set ourselves up and help set the employee up for even if it is a failure, that it's not an abysmal, horrible experience for everybody. And then along with that, fire somebody before building a case against them. And I use that term because I say you can kind of tell, right? When you're working with somebody and you know it's not going to work out, you know it's not going to work out, right? You're like, oh, I didn't like that they did that. And then all of a sudden you're like, I'm going to check that last email they sent and see what they said. And what did they tell that one client? And in your head, you're building a case against them, and you're out like, you're hunting for reasons why they're not a good fit. The second you have that gut feeling and you find yourself doing that, that's time to just be done. It's a hard conversation to have, but it's an easier conversation to have then than it is later when you've made yourself really, really angry and everything they do is something that you're really, really mad at. Right. So with after hiring, so designate systems, and here are the systems that we happen to use. I think that this is important to have. Again, you've got employees who are sitting in their homes. They have their sometimes own computers or computers that you've purchased for them. That's up to you and your policies. But then what are they using? Are they using their home phone? Are their kids answering when business is calling? That's one of the things that you actually have to talk to them about, and you have to have something set up for them. So we've got a few things we use. For phone, we use Ring Central. It's a virtual mailbox, anybody can call, and it sends, you get a voicemail and it'll send it to my inbox if it's one thing, it'll send it to Larissa if it's a merchant. So everybody has their own extensions that are on there, and it can ring through to a phone. I can send calls to my own phone if I want. And then we also use Uber Conference, and we use that for a lot of our team meetings, anytime that we have more than one person on the phone, or if we're going to be doing any walkthroughs or training of any kind. The other thing we'll use it for is client calls. If you're going to get on the phone with a client, instead of like trying to trade back and forth cell phone numbers, it's easy to just have an Uber Conference line that you're jumping on all the time, and that's sort of like your office number. For email, I should have actually put Google Business Apps and not Gmail. We don't advocate everybody using Gmail. We have a FMTC domain on Google, and that's where all of our email is housed. They just make it easy. It's cheap. They're taking care of a lot of the things that we don't have to, so our engineering team isn't running around trying to figure out what happened to the email servers last night. So Google just makes it really easy. Document handling, same thing, Google Drive. And for a while, we were using Dropbox. Dropbox was what we were on. Probably 90% of our documents were on Dropbox up through the last year, and it just became difficult to collaborate. You're on the phone and you're looking at a spreadsheet and you're like, well, I just changed that row. Well, hold on. Well, now I'm looking at a different row because I just inserted one, and so you have to keep going back and syncing all the time. So the Google Drive makes it really nice to just be able to log in. Everybody's looking at the same page, and you're able to share there. Then who has access to what? I'd ask for a show of hands, but I won't on this one. But I'm going to guess that a lot of you have a really big spreadsheet of all of the logins for everything in your company, and everybody has access to that spreadsheet. So all of your network logins and all the different mailing programs that you're using and everything else, everybody just goes to the spreadsheet where you have those held. And we all know we're not supposed to do that, but you're like, oh, it's just easier, right? And then you're at a point where you've got people who have too much access, and it's harder to rein things in, and it's really difficult if somebody leaves your team, whether it's a good situation that they're leaving or a bad situation when they're leaving. You can't walk into their office, close their computer, and have them walk out the door. They're at home, remember, and they have access to everything, and they've got that spreadsheet with all those logins, and there you are sitting behind your computer trying to go in and find them all and change all of those passwords. So we switched over to LastPass, and I'll credit Eric for that. He was really, really big on pushing that, and we fought him. We're like, oh, I don't want to have to log into that, and it's such a pain, and it does I just want to remember all of my passwords, and Apparently so do the hackers. So LastPass has made it really easy for us. Once we just made the switch, it's easy to share things and for everybody to get into everything that they need to, but nothing that they don't need to. So for the next one, I said, where do you get in touch with everyone? And I wanted to say that specifically instead of saying, what's your chat, your chat vehicle. We happen to use chat to stay in touch all day long. That might not work for you. Maybe you guys are on email or phone or something that works for you. For us, it's Skype. We're all logged into Skype. If you're logged into Skype, that means you're sitting at your computer and you're working. So that's a great way, even if you're on the phone and somebody has a quick question, we're able to stay in touch with everyone. And then we also set up groups. So we have, for example, our frontline. These are all of the people that are on our different products that are actually reaching out and touching customers. We have them in a chat along with our marketing, our marketing person. So all together, that's our sort of our outward facing employees, and they're all in one group so that they can be chatting and talking about different things. We have them for each product also. So, try to think about how your team is talking with one another and give them a place to go. Tracking hours. So most of our employees now are on a system called Hubstaff. So they log in, start to work, they press a button, and their timer starts. For some of them, if they're an hourly employee, that means that that's how they're getting paid. Hubstaff is tracking their hours for them. For other people, especially our engineers, that's where we're tracking how much time we're spending on different projects that we're working on. So that allows us to go in and say, how much did we spend on fresh press media last month? Well, we can see how many hours all of our engineers spent on it. We can see what our customer facing people spent on it, and we can figure that out. So that one, if you're just getting started with staff, starting with something like that is really easy. I'll be honest and say if you're starting in the middle and you have a staff that's not used to having to log into something and track their hours, it can be a little bit of a difficult push to get them to do it. But it really is helpful, and we're finding on our side, we're able to really see who's working, what they're working on, and that's nice from a company perspective. But also from the employee's perspective, they can see, I really do need to work a little bit more. I'm really not working what I thought I was. Or, oh my gosh, by the end of the day on Tuesday, I've worked all the hours one person's supposed to work in a week. I'm overdoing it. And we did see that also with some of our staff. We're like, hey, you scale it back a little bit. You are going to burn yourself out. So it's good to be tracking hours and looking at what's going on. And then tracking project progress. So internally we call this asana, but I'm a yogi, so I have to say asana. I'm not really sure. We haven't heard the company say the word, but that's what we use to track the progress of all of our projects. There's task management in there. You're able to assign things to people and collaborate on projects, and it works out really well. All right, so this point here, set policies. I talked about this before, and I put stress-free zone. That doesn't really exist. But once you have policies, and it's the rule, it's not like Rachel's just being really mean today, or it's not my fault, or I don't have to blame something on Eric. It's just like, listen, we've all agreed on this. This is the policy. This is how it goes, and that's how it goes for me also. And I think that that's important for those of you that are managing your staffs, that the rules apply to you too. And if they don't, then your staff is going to be like, really? How come we have to do it? So require those systems, make sure that everybody that you've told them that these are the systems you're using, make sure they're using them. Set expected work hours. When people are working from home, you'll get the people that are saying, well, I work best at 3 a.m. Well, maybe that works for some people and maybe that works for some positions, but in general, you're going to hit a point in 3 a.m. where you run into something that you need somebody else's help on and everyone else is sleeping. So that's really not the best time for everybody to be working. So talk about that with your staff, and also tell them what to do when they walk away. We are on Skype, and you say, hey, I'm going to drop the kids off at camp. I'll throw that in Skype really quick so anybody that might be looking for me knows that. We happen to be just really open with that at our company. And I'd rather that than people saying like, oh, I was just grabbing a drink of water. No, it's fine. You can walk away from your computer. You can go and take your kids to camp. That's great. That's fine. That's one of the luxuries of working from home. But we're just really honest about what we're doing and where we are. Vacation days, sick days, same thing. Find a policy for that. Make sure everybody understands it. Expenses, again, think about, coming to like an event attendance just like this. If it's an employee and they're coming from home, who's paying for what? Make sure that everybody knows what they're paying for when they're at home. Are you paying for their printer paper? Are you paying for their cell phones? Talk to them about those things and come up with policies that work across the board. Then social media and outward communications. That's one of the things that I have on my list to talk about with our team. If I saw somebody came out and said, like, Brian Littleton's a jerk, we hate share a sale. I mean, even on your personal Facebook page, we don't want something like that out there. We love Brian. We work really well with share a sale. I need to know if something like that is said, and I need my staff to understand that we don't talk like that. That's not the kinds of things we do. So have those conversations with your staff and make sure that they understand that anytime they're speaking, even if they're doing it personally and on their own personal pages and their personal Twitter profiles and things, that they're still an employee of your company. And then enforce the rules for everyone. Again, like I said before, even if you're the manager, you have to follow the rules. All right, and number 5, communicate constantly. Like I said earlier, I will talk like this forever and ever and ever. So I think communication is very important. It's the only way that people know what's going on in your head. We've got a few things that we do. We have the ongoing chat, like I mentioned, in Skype. We have that open all the time. Everybody's talking to one another throughout the day. If it's somebody's birthday, the whole thing lights up with all the emoticons, with happy birthdays and beers and, coffee mugs and all of that stuff. Then set daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly standing meetings. And it's really important to make them standing. If they're not a standing meeting on your calendar, then you're going to spend so much time trying to reschedule it all the time. We had a call last week with our finance representative, and we were on the phone with her, and she's like, well, I don't really have a whole lot to talk to you guys about this week, so you guys just want to skip? Nope. Absolutely not. Let's get on the phone and let's really say that. Let's say we don't have anything to talk about. So we did that. We got on the phone, and I think it was a half-hour call. So apparently we did have things to talk about, and they would have gotten missed. And if we kept doing that week after week, that meeting would have fallen off of our calendars because we don't really have anything to talk about. And then we'd be back to scrambling and trying to get that back on the calendar again. And again, especially with your teams being off on their own, people sitting at home alone in most cases, communication and personal interaction is huge. You want to talk to people. We all don't want to be staring at our dog all day. Why can't you speak back to me? That's why you have your people. So getting online, getting into those chats is great, but then getting on the phone and actually talking to people is a really, really good thing to do with your team, a really good thing to do for morale. The next point here was demand. And I mean, demand. Tell them this is a must in your company to have inter and cross-department meetings. So I want my programmers talking to each other all the time because they need to know what they need to learn from each other, and they need to grow, and they need to work together and help each other solve problems. But then I also want the programmers to be talking to the people that are talking to the customers, and I want them to be talking to our marketing people so that everybody knows what everybody else is doing, the parts they're playing. If you're going to be doing these meetings, and you should be doing them, define the purpose and agendas. When you have that, then everybody shows up, they're ready to go, they get through their list of things, meetings are efficient, and they're actually helpful. And then create feedback loops. We've got a few of these that we do where projects come in as ideas, they move through a process, and then they actually come back to the person that had the idea, actually finds out that the idea was implemented, it's done, or they'll even hear like, sorry, we didn't like your idea. We didn't take it, so it didn't get done, but we have that feedback loop. And then annual reviews, and again, maybe annual isn't the right word. Maybe they're at a closer period. But sit down and talk to your employees at least once a year to tell them what you think about their performance. They want to hear it, and I know, again, I don't have time for that. Everybody has at least an hour that they can dedicate to their employees to let them know how they think they're doing. It'll pay off. It's good information, and it's a good way to get them talking about what they can do for you and how you can help them grow. So that's it. again, have a plan, hire carefully, designate systems, set policies, and communicate constantly. If you have, I have to be done now, but if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to chat with you. There's my email address, rachel@fmtc.co. More than happy to answer questions or connect with you. So thank you very much.